The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
Snow White just got torched. Not by critics, not by fans, but by South Park, in one of the most brutal takedowns Disney's ever faced. The beloved fairy tale was reimagined, rewritten, and roasted into oblivion, and at the center of it all, Rachel Zegler, the actress who thought she was leading a feminist fairy tale revolution. Until the internet turned her into a meme, and South Park turned her into a punchline. But here's the kicker. Rachel saw the episode, and her reaction? Let's just say the meltdown behind the scenes is even worse than what aired on TV. Let's rewind for a second.
Rachel Zegler, thanks for coming on my show. I sold out years ago and I'm a coward. So you recently starred in the movie Snow White. Tell me, what was it like to play Snow Latina?
First of all, Steven, it was weird. But I did enjoy reimagining the character as a woke Colombian woman who looks like a fish.
Before South Park ripped this movie to shreds, Rachel Zegler had already been dragging it through the mud, on her own. In multiple interviews, she proudly trashed the original 1937 Snow White as weird, outdated, and creepy. According to her, the prince was basically a stalker, the love story was garbage, and her version of Snow White didn't need saving. Bold take. Until you realize she was saying this while promoting the remake. Imagine signing on to play one of the most iconic roles in Disney history, and then publicly bashing the very film that made it famous. That's not girl boss energy, that's just bad PR. Audiences didn't see a strong modern princess. They saw an actress acting like she was too cool for the role.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure.
I am the Snow White now.
And the internet noticed fast. The backlash was immediate. Fans felt insulted. Critics called it tone deaf. And Rachel? She doubled down. She posted cryptic tweets, rolled her eyes in interviews, and somehow made things even worse. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared her for what South Park had in store. And when she finally saw what they did, oh, that's when the real chaos started. If Disney's marketing team lit the match with this remake, Rachel Zegler poured gasoline on the fire and smiled while doing it. Instead of embracing the legacy of one of Disney's most iconic characters, Zegler treated Snow White like an outdated joke. She didn't just criticize the original 1937 film, she mocked it. In interviews, she slammed the prince as a stalker, dismissed the love story as weird, and proudly bragged that her version of Snow White doesn't need saving. It wasn't empowering. It was condescending, and fans could smell the arrogance from a mile away. This wasn't a modern update. It was a hit job on a classic. Audiences were stunned. Even people who had no strong opinions about the remake before suddenly had one loud and clear. They couldn't stand Rachel Zegler. Social media lit up with clips of her snarky interviews, reaction videos exploded, and entire Reddit threads were created just to roast her out-of-touch attitude. She didn't come off as a proud lead actress. She came off like she hated the very role she was hired to play. And the worst part? Disney stood by and let her run her mouth. While the studio scrambled to slap together damage control behind the scenes, Rachel became a one-woman wrecking ball, dragging down the movie's reputation with every smug soundbite. This wasn't just bad PR. It was a total collapse of trust between Disney and its audience. And just when it seemed like the backlash couldn't get any uglier, South Park stepped in.
Eric, it's okay. Okay.
Ma'am, I had a dream that I was replaced by a diverse woman.
Oh, not again.
Yeah, only this time, it wasn't just me. They were taking all my favorite people and replacing them with diverse women complaining about the patriarchy.
Enter South Park. The kings of cultural mockery took one look at Disney's disaster and went in for the kill. In classic South Park fashion, they didn't just make fun of the Snow White remake. They eviscerated it. The parody was ruthless. Rachel Zegler's Snow White was reimagined as a smug, identity-obsessed caricature who looked more like a self-important activist than a fairy tale heroine. The now viral line, "Put a chicken in, make her gay," became the internet's shorthand for Disney's lazy diversity formula. Check every box, slap on a hashtag, and pray the audience is too distracted to notice the movie sucks. Kathleen Kennedy, the creative force behind so many of Disney's modern reimaginings, wasn't spared either.
In place of the patriarchy, you would have a queen! Not white, but diverse, inclusive, and equitable!
In the episode, she's portrayed as the puppet master, hiding under children's beds, hell-bent on replacing every beloved character with a diverse woman who complains about the patriarchy. It was exaggerated, offensive, and, most painfully, for Disney, brutally accurate to how many fans already felt. And the audience? They loved it. Clips from the episode went viral overnight. Memes flooded social media. Comment sections lit up with people saying, "Finally, someone said it out." Loud, what Disney thought would be a bold, progressive reimagining had officially become a punchline, and Rachel Zegler was the face of the joke. But while fans were laughing, Rachel wasn't. Word has it, she was furious. Sources say she was blindsided by the episode and livid that she was being mocked on such a massive scale. Rumors even hint that Disney scrambled to do internal damage control, again, trying to shield Zegler from the fallout.
I get stalker photos every time I'm online for the Snow White ride, and I have to pretend like, oh God, well, crazy that we're in front of this.
Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride?
I'm a narcissist.
Too late. South Park didn't just roast the movie. They roasted the entire corporate mindset behind it. And now, the world was watching the House of Mouse crumble in real time. If South Park lit the match, social media dumped a barrel of gasoline on top of it and threw in some fireworks for good measure. Within hours of the episode airing, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube were in full-scale riot mode. Disney's remake wasn't just being mocked, it was shredded. The hashtag started trending almost immediately. Snow woke? Not my Snow White. I'd fire Kathleen Kennedy.
Snow White star Rachel Zegler is entering the chat, telling Allure she struggles to meet supportive women in Hollywood. Quote, "All I'm ever really looking for in this business is a sister, and they're not always easy to find."
Reaction videos flooded YouTube, some laughing, some raging, all agreeing on one thing. This wasn't Snow White. It was a soulless corporate Frankenstein stitched together by focus groups and fake empowerment slogans. And Rachel Zegler? She became the unwilling poster child for everything fans hated about modern Hollywood. Screenshots of her interviews were turned into memes. Clips of her trashing the original film were edited into parody trailers. Even her red carpet moments were dissected frame by frame, with people accusing her of being arrogant, dismissive, and completely tone-deaf. But the worst part? Even neutral viewers, people who weren't invested in the whole woke versus anti-woke culture war, started turning on the film. They didn't see bold storytelling or fresh ideas. They saw a company trying to guilt-trip them into supporting a product that spit in the face of what made it magical in the first place. Then came the real death blow: audience apathy. The kind that kills opening weekends and buries box office. Numbers. People weren't just angry, they were exhausted, tired of being lectured, tired of being told they were the problem for not clapping hard enough, tired of watching beloved stories get gutted in the name of fake progress. And while the internet tore Rachel and Disney to pieces, the execs were scrambling behind the scenes, desperately trying to shift the narrative. But there was one problem. The fans had already taken control of the story, and what happened next proved just how deep the damage really was. As the internet burned, Disney hit the panic button. Behind the scenes, executives were scrambling to contain the fallout, and Rachel Zegler was at the center of the storm. Sources say she was furious after the South Park episode aired, blindsided by how viciously she was mocked. She wanted Disney to step in and defend her. Instead, the studio started looking for ways to quiet her down.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump. So I attacked her, and then she came out and she said, "I apologize. I went too far." But it wasn't sincere.
Insiders claim Disney began restricting her interviews, pushing her to stick to scripted answers. There were even whispers that they were planning to pull her from future promotions. Altogether, an unthinkable move for a lead actress. But by then, she'd become a liability. Every clip, every quote, every smug eye roll was adding fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, the top brass, reportedly including Bob Iger, were holding emergency meetings trying to salvage the movie's reputation. The plan? Muzzle the star, spin the story, and pray the public forgets. But it was already too late. The audience had turned, and the internet had made up its mind. Rachel wasn't saving the film, she was sinking it, and Disney was scrambling just to stay afloat. With the film's reputation in free fall, Disney didn't just retreat, they went on the offensive. According to anonymous sources circling online, the studio allegedly started targeting the loudest critics. YouTubers, bloggers, and culture. Commentators who refused to play nice suddenly found their videos demonetized, their posts throttled, and their reach mysteriously shrinking. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing was suspicious. Every time someone roasted the remake, algorithms seemed to bury the content just enough to raise eyebrows. Critics began whispering about a quiet, top-down smear campaign, Disney trying to silence backlash, without making it obvious. The goal? Reframe the outrage as bigotry. Paint every critic as anti-progress, and hope no one questions the product itself. Meanwhile, legacy media outlets ran glowing fluff pieces defending Rachel Zegler and blaming the backlash on toxic fandom. But fans weren't buying it. They didn't hate the movie because it was diverse. They hated it because it was hollow, because it disrespected the source material, because it felt like a lecture dressed up as a fairy tale. And that's what Disney never seemed to grasp. The more they tried to spin the story, the more obvious it became. They weren't listening. They were suppressing. They weren't responding to criticism. They were steamrolling it. But the audience wasn't going quiet.
Because right now there's more dwarves on this podcast than there are in the new Snow White movie. And that's probably due to Peter Dinklage.
Yep.
If anything, the pushback was just getting louder. At this point, the phrase, "go woke, go broke," isn't just a meme. It's starting to look like Disney's business model. One by one, their so-called modernized remakes are collapsing under the weight of their own corporate messaging. And Snow White might be the biggest flop yet. It's not about diversity. Fans aren't rejecting inclusion. They're rejecting laziness. Disney keeps pumping out reboots that slap a coat of progressive paint over hollow scripts and expect applause. But audiences aren't dumb. They know when a story is genuine, and when it's just a boardroom checklist pretending to be a fairy tale. And that's the real tragedy here. Disney has the money, talent, and platform to create bold, original stories with meaningful representation. Instead, they keep cannibalizing their classics, stripping them of heart, and selling the scraps as empowerment. Snow White was supposed to be a fresh start. Instead, it became a warning sign. The backlash wasn't just about one movie. It was about years of being talked down to, of being told what to love, and being blamed when they didn't clap hard enough. Now, the audience has stopped clapping altogether, and Disney is finally starting to feel the silence. Once upon a time, Disney knew how to make magic. It told stories that brought people together, simple, timeless tales about love, courage, and wonder. But somewhere along the way, that magic got replaced with messaging, and now, all that's left is a soulless echo of what used to be. Snow White didn't fail because audiences couldn't handle a new take. It failed because Disney forgot why people loved the original in the first place. They didn't want a lecture. They didn't want corporate pandering wrapped in CGI. They wanted heart. They wanted wonder. They wanted to feel something real. Instead, they got Rachel Zegler mocking the legacy, executives gaslighting the backlash, and South Park delivering the only honest review the film ever got, through brutal satire. And if Disney still doesn't understand why people are angry, here's the truth. When you keep insulting your audience, eventually, they stop coming back. The real fairy tale is over, and no amount of spin, no army of PR reps, no recycled remake can bring it back.